Hi, I'm Amy Rosechandler, and I'm a licensed mental health counselor in Rochester, New York. I have a private practice called Clarity Mental Health in Pittsford, near Powder Mill Park, right off of Route 96. I made this video to talk to you about self-care and also to give you a sneak peek into a class I'll be teaching at the Rochester Brainery on February 29th called How to Make Your Own Self-Care Kit. As a therapist who enjoys research about what works for good mental health, there's definitely some science behind stress management techniques, especially about how wellness routines can be very valuable to our mental health. That's because we tend to carry the negative effects of stress with us. And while we know that stress is a normal part of everyday life and should be expected, there are times when we don't check in with how stress is affecting us. And when the negative effects of stress go unchecked, we start to feel it in our body, we start to notice it in our thoughts, we even start to experience stress creeping into our relationships. So if you've ever been through a long day and come home with a headache or feel forgetful or even snapped at your loved ones, then you've experienced the negative effects of stress. And that's why self-care routine can be so important for checking in with ourselves, paying attention to our own needs, and reflecting. If we think about how physical wellness is such a part of our everyday life, many of us participate in exercise, or we plan healthy meals for ourselves, we check in with our doctor for regular follow-up visits. It's not so radical to think about how self-care can be an important part of our everyday routine for our emotional health. What we'll be thinking about over the next few minutes is how to really maintain a wellness routine and keep a self-care practice going. Because it's when we have a really stressful day that we tend to let go of our self-care and we stop paying attention to it. So if we've been practicing a self-care routine for a while and we're getting in the habit of it, when we have a stressful day, we're more likely to keep it going. Know that a different or more specific plan might be needed if we're in a period of high emotional distress or if we're experiencing a mental health crisis or emergency. Also know that there are many different parts of what can make up our healthy self. There's our physical wellness, our emotional well-being, spiritual health, our relationships, and our work-life balance. And all of those things incorporate wellness. Self-care is really about taking time to reflect with all of our attention and help us to focus and be mindful of our own needs. There may be many different kinds of techniques that you include in self-care. So know that self-care is really personal to you and can be really unique to what kind of skills and resources and strengths that you have. And I'll be sharing some of my ideas or tips for self-care, but when you come up with a plan that is going to be something that works for you, it might take a little trial and error or it might take a little bit of flexibility in having many different resources and tools available to you. So that's why when we first start thinking about a self-care routine, it's important to spend some time imagining and dreaming what you might really like to do in your self-care routine. Think about realistic things like how much time you'd like to spend on self-care. Some people need 5 minutes, and some people might want to spend an hour every day doing self-care. Think about the type of resources that you might need and what kinds of things you might want to include. Think about where your self-care will be done. And when you can imagine all of these things, you could start to really get a sense of how to develop that routine and what will work for you. For me, my self-care kit is actually a drawer at work that includes a bunch of different stuff I can go through for about 10 minutes a day. I like to start with something to make or do that helps me to focus. Starting out with something to really help you be more mindful, and by mindfulness I mean paying attention in the present moment on purpose without judging yourself or without thinking about the past or without thinking too much about what's going on later. Mindfulness just means being in the present moment. And there's some great scientific research behind it, particularly about how there's benefits for mindfulness in terms of focus and in terms of relaxation, and also even with things like coping with chronic pain. Some things that help with mindfulness are activities that help you stay in the present moment and really pay attention. So there's these great coloring books that are out now that have really intricate designs that help you, both for adults and kids, to really pay attention and focus, and they can be pretty relaxing. There's also, again, making it unique to you. You can include things that are fun for you, but also help you to pay attention. So for me, origami takes a lot of focus. If I'm not focusing, I'll mess up doing it. So I think origami, including something like this, helps me to really focus and pay attention to the present moment. I also include nail polish in my self-care kit at work, which helps me to just be in the here and now, do one thing at a time. That's really what it's about. The next thing I like to include is an affirmation or a self-love statement. And you can just keep a piece of paper, or some people like to have some journaling paper in their self-care kit. You could write down something that's really unique and meaningful to you. A self-care routine can include something that helps us to focus in on our own values and, at the end of the day, what's important to us. There's some researchers called Kristen Neff and Brene Brown who've been studying something called self-compassion, which basically means talking to yourself like a friend. Being able to be kind to yourself after you've experienced shame or you've had failure or made a mistake. Being able to really pick yourself up after falling down or rising strong, as Brene Brown puts it, can really help us to move forward. And doing something that can help you remember your strengths and also to reflect and be kind to yourself can really help you move forward after you've had a long day or a stressful day. Lastly, I like to include something that helps me to reflect and think through, maybe problem solve, and I think writing can be really helpful for that. So if you can find a way to express yourself, that could be a really important part of self-care. And this is what a lot of people think about when they imagine self-care. They imagine drawing or creating maybe a poem, maybe writing down thoughts or feelings. And that can be very important, especially if we're able to use that reflection time as a way to think about our own needs. There's an author named Vicki Reynolds who I really like, and she talks about how sometimes when we're burned out or we're feeling really tired, or if we really are just feeling drained, it can be because we're not getting what we need, and maybe we're not having the kind of resources that we need to cope with situations, and that makes us feel powerless. So I think really writing down and expressing yourself can help you feel empowered, because it can help you get those feelings out there, process what you've been going through, and maybe come up with some ideas or start to feel like you can move forward. So I think that's a really important part of self-care, is to reflect. So far we've talked about mindfulness, or taking time to be in the present moment, and there's so many things that we could include with that. Anything that will help you focus and pay attention to the present moment. We've also talked about self-affirmation or self-compassion and how important that can be for picking yourself up after you've made a mistake or had a stressful day. If you felt failure or shame, can really help you to move forward. And we've also talked about expressing yourself through writing or creating something. So we've talked about some of my ideas for self-care, and again, I think it's so important for you to really maintain a self-care routine, to think about what will work for you, and to maybe think about any barriers that could get in your way, anything that might stop you from doing your self-care routine. And try to imagine how to really overcome that so that you can follow through, because following through with the self-care routine is so important if you're going to put this into place. And I know you could do it, and I know that it will really help with being able to reflect, focus on our own needs, and in the long run to manage short-term and long-term stress. So good luck with your self-care routine. Good luck. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know what your experience is. You can contact me on my blog, on my website, which is claritymentalhealth.org. I also have a Facebook page, so feel free to check out more information about me and also about the class I'll be teaching at Rochester Granary on February 29th.